Bonjour everyone, I am Anis Kayes and welcome to Parlez-Vous CEO, where we ditch the corporate talk and get real about entrepreneurship. Each week, I chat with founders and CEOs who build businesses their way, through the failures, pivots, and breakthroughs. And they bring the fire. Plus, I'll drop some golden nuggets of wisdom from my own entrepreneurial journey. This is your space to grow, learn, and evolve with a true growth mindset. Remember, success isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. Now let's kick things off and get this party started. Hello, bonjour, bonjour, hello. Welcome to another episode of Parlez-Vous CEO. My name is Anis Kayes and I am your host. For those who are just joining the podcast, we're Brandora and we specialize in helping real estate companies scale their revenue. If you want to learn how to take your business to the next level, make sure to stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, just drop the word growth in the DMs. So I am very excited today to have a very special guest with us, Maura. I hope I'm saying your name right?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm super happy to have you with us from Nashville. And please, Maura, tell our listeners a little bit about your story, about your background in your own words.
Thank you, Annalise, for introducing me. I appreciate that. I am an architect. I've been an architect my entire career, and I started out in real estate development after practicing architecture for about 5 years, and I specialized in commercial shopping centers. I did renovations to shopping centers. I built on extensions to shopping centers. I reconfigured shopping centers. I did that for quite a while, and then I had a personal event happen in my life. My mother, bless her soul, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and this was it's going on 12 years ago now. So for 11 years, I worked in the senior living business, and I did the same thing that I did for shopping centers, but for senior living communities. I worked on independent living, assisted living, and memory care communities, and I worked on everything from parking lot renovation projects to roof replacements to HVAC to new chairs and new paint. In April of last year, so April of 24, I made a conscious decision that I was just tired of the senior living space and more importantly, traveling. I've traveled my entire career, and I love Nashville. I made a conscious decision in 2020 to move here, and I traveled away from here for a career. I took a step away from my corporate job in 2022, but I continued with clients in Chicago and Michigan. So I was still traveling every week or every other week. And so in April of last year, 24, I decided to look for something else. And I found this company, Homestretch. It's a franchise operation out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And what we do is we take homes and get them ready for sale. It's a home preparation company. And we do everything from the design work, the color selection. And the idea is to make a house worth more money and sell quicker. So that's what we're doing. And I am tickled pink and delighted with what I'm doing. I love my projects. So that's my quick bio.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Could you share with our listeners one of your first clients within the new company, within Homestretch?
Sure. The very first project I had, I was very fortunate. I live in Brentwood, Tennessee, and we have a very affluent area around me. We have larger homes. In my very first project, there was a realtor that took a chance on me, and we renovated a kitchen and a couple bathrooms, and that was the limit of my work. And the renovation, we don't do wholesale renovations. We do lipstick, I want to say. So these bathrooms were in good condition, as was the kitchen. But the kitchen had sort of a yellowish brown color cabinet and had that, I call it cheese granite. It looked like gobs of cheese that was brown and yellow and white. And we converted that kitchen to a brand new super white kitchen. We painted all the cabinets. We left the hardware. We put in beautiful quartz countertops. And then we put in really nice, as I call it, sexy lighting that is a much cleaner light. So the lighting actually enhances the food rather than some of the lights in there. Ironically, because they had brown cabinets, they had blue lights in there, blue lighting looking. And it looked like an emergency room. And now they have a lovely kitchen. So that was the very first project. I'd also love to point out a project I did. The last 4 projects, I'm sorry. The last 4 projects that I've done, we do the projects and we put the house on the market and the house sells in one day. It's happened 4 times for me, which is really, really satisfying because the reason I'm doing this company is to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And not only am I helping my subcontractors find really great projects to do, I'm helping the homeowners. It is a buyer's market right now, and houses are probably not as high priced as they were a year ago. However, the buyers are looking for the houses to be, I call it reconditioned. So they need a fresh coat of paint, they need new lighting, especially anything that's more than 10 years old. That's kind of the life cycle of color. So anyway,
That
that's what I've
sounds
been doing. Yeah.
Sounds fun. Thank you for sharing. And so, how have you found these new clients? How have you found these sellers, these landlords looking to sell? Because it's a very specific moment where you need to have a conversation with them.
Yes. So what I've been doing, Homestretch's MO is to go to realtors that are selling single family homes primarily. I have bid on one condo project, but I did not get that project because the condo, it was an investment project. And the person who lives in the condo is still living there. They wanted to change out the floor. The rest of the homes that I have done so far are all homes where there's some reason, there's some possibility to make more money on the house, and or the house needs to sell fast, and or the house just needs a refresh. What I do is, in terms of finding those realtors, we have a software program which actually searches out real estate offices and actually tells me who's working in what offices. My territory is basically from the city of Nashville going south. We have a big highway called I-65. I basically go about 30 miles south of the city, and I go pretty far east and pretty far west from that. But I have a territory of about 450,000 homes in my territory.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 20,000 realtors in Nashville. So the other thing I'm trying to do is trying to find like-minded realtors. There's like-minded and there's realtors that just want to get the sale, but there's a lot of realtors out there that have a vision, but they just don't have the manpower to execute these jobs. And or maybe they're a younger realtor and they don't really have a visual or a vision as to what do you need to spend. I'm very strategic when I do projects.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we do lighting, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we do a few new light fixtures, sometimes we do the whole house.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends on the home.
And earlier, I heard you use a term I haven't heard before, lipstick. Can you talk about that a bit more? The difference between lipstick and home
Wholesale
preparation?
construction.
Okay.
Yeah. So lipstick is something we used to use that word both in regional shopping centers, and we also used it in senior living. If the bones of a building are good, what I don't want to do is get involved in a project that's overly cumbersome. But if the bones are good, that first kitchen I mentioned, the bones were great. The layout of the kitchen was great. The counters were in the right height. The sink was in the right location.
Mm-hmm.
The appliances were good. All it needed was, as I call it, lipstick. It needed a little bit of makeup to make it relevant again because it was a 13-year-old kitchen. We do that all over. There's a house I'm bidding right now that, again, I said the bones are good. They're really good. The heights of when you walk into the house, there's a nice 2-story foyer. It needs a new light fixture. The light fixture that's sitting there is probably 15 years old. It just needs something more trendy that our buyers are looking for. And it's a nightmare to put in a light fixture when you buy a home that's 2 stories up in the sky because you, the buyer, doesn't have the ladders. Well, if I'm in there painting anyway,
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense for me to switch out that light fixture with
Mm-hmm.
a really gorgeous light fixture that's going to turn around the space. There's other trends that are going on right now. I'm looking at a house right now. I'm hopeful to get it that has really beautiful, kind of a honey oak floor, but for some reason the railings, the balustrades are a different color wood. It's off just so much that it bothers me as a design person.
Mm-hmm.
And if it bothers me, even though the new home buyers may not point it out, they'll say there's something off with the space.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're doing is, again, I take a look at each piece and each component of the house, and I try to figure out what makes the most sense. In this house, we're going to stay with the white spindles, but we're going to paint the top balustrade because refinishing oak to match oak is nearly impossible. And if it's done at a separate time. If it's done at the same time, it's much easier to accomplish. But since those floors were not touching, we're going to go with black on the top. And it's absolutely beautiful to do a black cap rail and a black base. And I leave my white spindles. And I'm accenting it with with black light fixtures, black accented light fixtures.
That's so interesting. And I'd love to go back, Maura, on your experience with senior living. Can you tell us a bit more, because you work in that space for a long time? I understand it was motivated because of your mother. Can you tell us, our audience, what are the pros and cons of this industry, what you liked a lot versus what you didn't enjoy? Remember, you said you were traveling a lot. I'm sure that was a big part of it. But can you tell us more a bit about this industry and why you felt that you wanted to change?
Yeah, senior living is, so I went into senior living in 12 years ago. So I think it was 2013. Yeah, it's September of 2013 when I went into it. Senior living is becoming a very, very hot industry. And I say it's been becoming since 2000 and probably 10-ish. It's been a growing industry as the baby boomer generation retires and becomes more interested in living without, not independently, or maybe they want to live independently, but maybe one spouse needs some assistance from a nurse or from, I don't know, from even they need a socialization. A lot of senior living communities are largely around socialization and socialized dining. I went into the business, as I mentioned, in 2013 because my mom, I mentioned she had Alzheimer's, and we had to put her into an Alzheimer's unit, into a memory care unit, because I'll be honest, she kept disappearing from home. My dad would wake up and she'd be gone. It could be 5 a.m, it could be 8 a.m, it could be 6 a.m, but she'd be gone, and she would just go. She became a risk to herself, or she could have walked in the middle of the road because she didn't have the conscious ability. She also didn't know her address, her phone number, or even her name at that point. She had the awful Alzheimer diagnosis. She had it already at 8 years at that point. So we had the in-home caregivers, et cetera, but it became very apparent that she was going to cause some major catastrophe. So in senior living, just like a house, but even more so than a house, it takes a lot of abuse. And a lot of residents in senior living, for example, are incontinent. They have to wear, pull-ups. Or depends. And what happens is over time, the furniture, we buy special furniture that prevents like the urine from getting through the chair, for example. But even when you do that, over time, it wears very quickly, much faster than it would in your own home, for example. So there's a constant need for new furniture. There's a constant need for new flooring because they use, a lot of seniors use walkers, or they have wheelchairs, or they have oxygen machines, or they have medical equipment that comes in and out. Sometimes you have the medical professionals that come in and with gurneys to take people to the hospital. So anyway, we, in that industry, there's a whole group of people that work and support it to make sure that the residents are kept safe. I left it again primarily because of the travel, as I mentioned. We have a lot of senior living in the state of Tennessee, of course. It's actually a big booming area for senior living, Tennessee, Kentucky. As people migrate away from the bigger cities, they migrate with their kids. So they migrate. So if the kids are moving to Nashville, or the kids are moving to Louisville, Kentucky, or they're moving to Miami, Florida, the parents oftentimes, when they become alone, or they become less capable, they move with their kids. So those are the areas where you see big real estate booms in housing. You also see a lot of senior living communities being built.
Thank you for sharing. So when you transition to starting your own business, I mean, it's a very different animal to work for someone than started to work for oneself, right? Your day work will not look alike at all. So how would you say was your transition from one world to the other? And what was the biggest surprise that you realized, the main difference that you either enjoyed or got scared of as you started your new adventure with Homestretch?
Well, I had the advantage of 2 years prior to starting Homestretch, I was on my own consulting. And then I had done this early in my shopping center years as well. When I first had kids, because I'm a mom of 2 incredible kids as well that are now 19 and 22, I had taken on some consulting roles. And it was primarily because my husband had the insurance, and I was able to still work full time, but earn more money, frankly, on contract. So I have done self-employment for 14 years of my, or
Mm.
15 or 16 years of my career. So I kind of knew what it was.
Mhm.
Starting this adventure hasn't been entirely different. You do need a certain sense of self. You need a compass to know where you're going.
Mhm.
Because if you're going all over the place, east, west, south, nothing's going to get done. So you need to be very directional and very focused. My biggest challenge running this company is I love, love, love design. And I secondarily love, love, love relationships.
Mhm.
And while those both sound like positives in this business, they sometimes can become distractions. I'll be honest.
Mhm.
I can get really caught up in making sure I have the precise, correct light fixture.
Mhm.
And a lot of people in my shoes might say it doesn't really matter. You're just selling the house. I don't feel
Mhm.
that way. I
Mhm.
feel like every house and every environment needs to feel special. So while I'm slapping myself for being so involved in the emotion of a job, but the other thing is emotionally, every house transition is an emotional transaction. It's not, you're selling people's homes.
Mhm.
So what's caught me a little bit by surprise is, and I shouldn't say that, it really I anticipated it, but I get involved with the emotions of my sellers as well.
Mhm.
And I get really excited when we do a job well and that house sells in a day. It feels like it's my own house I'm selling.
Mhm.
So I say that's maybe a surprise or a negative. It's not. I just have to be careful not to let it distract me
Mhm.
because I need to keep my compass going forward and
Mhm.
continuing to grow the company.
I completely understand the need to find that balance between your craft, designing and business development. So it's
Correct.
always like an elegant dance between those two. And as a founder, relationship is very important. Otherwise, you don't have a business, then you can't exercise your craft, right? So it's that constant juggling of the two worlds, because as any kind of business owner, you didn't think, oh, I'm starting this business and I have to meet clients, I have to find clients, I have to manage clients. You really think about your art or the service you're interested in, whether it's tech, real estate, architecture, marketing for me, but you don't necessarily think that to have a viable business, you're going to have to do sales. So even if it's not necessarily an exercise you're comfortable with or thought you were going to do. So I think that's always interesting when I hear new entrepreneurs. They think a lot about their product, the delivery, the execution. They don't think as much about business development. And I think in the beginning, that's really something to focus on.
And I think what's interesting about that is I've caught myself in the middle of a project, miring in that project. And just like you said, not focusing on the next project that I don't
Mm-hmm.
have yet in my
Mm-hmm.
I don't have it in my lead list even. I think, I'm told by a realtor we're going to have a project that's going to kick off. For example, I have one right now. I'm supposed to be visiting the house mid-April. So
Mm-hmm.
it's in my hot leads. It is a deal,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't control the circumstances as to when the family is ready to actually relocate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so mid-April, it was funny just yesterday, I called and it's in my lead and it's in my schedule that we're starting this project around May 15th, right? And I reached out to the realtor yesterday and I was told, well, they're not quite ready. So
Mm-hmm.
if I had nothing else in my lead list, that would be very dangerous. If I didn't have any other deals, I'm working on 3 projects right now, but if I don't have anything behind them, then
Mm-hmm.
what do I do? Then I can't be working on projects and then not doing any BD at the same time. So I
Absolutely.
have hired someone to join forces with me and she's dynamite and she's excited and she's very good on social media, which to
Mm-hmm.
me is also very important
Mm-hmm.
because I'm just to the point where I can't design, manage, BD, social media. And she has a very keen interest and a good eye for interior design,
Mm-hmm.
which she's really just getting into. And she's young and she's exploring it. And gosh, if she wants to hang out with me, it's fabulous because it gives me also another sense of almost mentorship that I have to do right by her. If she's coming to me, I think people oftentimes don't realize that in a lead position, you think you're mentoring someone. Well, if you're mentoring someone, you better commit to them wholeheartedly. if she's coming to me, I have to mutually commit to her to make sure
Mm-hmm.
she succeeds
Mm-hmm.
in whatever direction she wants to go. And if it's to stick around with me long term, great.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just to get a toolkit ready that she can deploy elsewhere, great,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think too often in business, we get stuck in this, this is my job and this is where I'm stuck. And I hope that no one ever feels that way, but I know a lot of people do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think and mentors can come in really different shape and form. I think people tend to have the traditional idea of a mentor that has to be someone older in the same industry, but mentorship can come even
Not so
from,
much.
no, can come from friends and different industries. Then you pick and choose what's relevant for you, because I think it can be also very toxic to listen to everything that you're told.
Great.
But yeah, mentorship can come from your peers and people your age,
Correct.
well-intentioned and with, a nice head on their shoulders. Not necessarily the traditional mentorship situation that people usually think of.
Well, and I think that's changing as well. I think we're in a very fluid environment right now where, again, I think I know social. I don't know social. I know social I know what I know of social,
Yeah.
but it is not my expertise, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I know how to use my CRM,
Mm-hmm.
my sales tool. I kind of do, but I really don't because I don't really use it. And it's interesting, like our franchise, we have all this hot shot, wonderful technology behind the scenes, and I'm finding that I'm using some old school stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely use my tools for estimating jobs, which is very expeditious because it's really well wired. The
Nice.
algorithms determine how much paint I need and how much I
Mm-hmm.
should bill on a square foot basis or on a
Mm-hmm.
wall or what have you to make
That's
sure that I'm
great.
not gouging. I don't want to gouge my clients
Mm-hmm.
on purpose or not on purpose. Either way, I want to be
Mm-hmm.
fair.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing about what I'm doing is there's a lot of distrust with construction people and contractors. Oh, they're taking advantage of me. They're charging me 10 times more and that's not me. That is not me at all. And on the contrary, I will give more than I'll take. Because again, I'm about the relationship building. And I understand that if I was sitting in their shoes, I would want someone like myself helping me
Mm-hmm.
manage through this project, not only on the construction side, but also on the emotional side. This has been kind of my sweet spot, and I didn't understand it when I did this. This has been like a natural benefit. I love relating, as I mentioned earlier, with
Mm-hmm.
people. And it's been magical to see projects and relationships, it's really, really cool. We did a house, I guess we finished it 2 weeks ago. And it's this gentleman served, it's an older gentleman, and he served in Vietnam for 2 separate tours. And he's deaf because of it. He does wear hearing aids, but he can't hear my voice because my voice is too high pitched.
Mm-hmm.
He could hear his daughter, but his daughter was screaming at him all the time. Anyway, I'll tell you something. When we finished his house, I was so happy, that we did this house for him. And it was
Mm-hmm.
really a gift from God that I had this relationship with this man and his daughter. And I mean, there was just something really cool because he's going through the emotion of selling a home he's lived in
Mm-hmm.
with his wife. I mean, his wife, she died a couple years back. What a beautiful thing, though, to help him transition to he needs a smaller house. The house was 3 levels.
Mm-hmm.
But
Wow,
just
that's
being on the journey with him was really powerful.
yeah, that's fascinating how, the relationship that you have with your clients are really going beyond business. It's really like hand holding them through, what is an emotional process for some of your clients.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to something you mentioned. So you said, I don't know social, and you have someone helping you with social. Do you have any, not horror story, but any fun story about the worst marketing you've done? The worst and
No,
the best.
no, my issue with social is that I do know it, but I just don't have time to learn. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time to do reels. And I mean that sincerely. And I know that they're very effective with technology and with algorithms. And getting more followers. I guess the one funnyism is when I first started, I have a pretty good sized following on Facebook and not so much on Instagram, because how much time do people have for social? And LinkedIn, I think I have, I don't know, close to 7,000 followers. But I was just doing it like I always did it and making it very personable, right? My funny story is that my daughter said to me one day, this isn't your personal page. This is your business page. And I think of course, there's maybe a line, but again, there isn't for me. For me, relationships, I mean, I'm authentic. Who you're meeting here on this video call is the same person I am to everybody. I don't have different hats I wear. And I think that was, sort of kind of a reckoning for me that I'm not going to change. I'm going to be me. I'm going to bring the me to the table. And I hope that people enjoy working with the me and my team, right? But I'm relating with people that are, I don't want to say similar because it sounds like we're all clones, because we're not. If my contractors were the same as me, well, why do we need two of us, right? We need to complement each other's skills in order to be effective and also get the project done. Because in the end of the day, that's what matters, is that we renovate these homes and then we sell them. And so, knock on wood, this last one for the Vietnam vet, I saw him last Thursday. They put the house on the market on Thursday at like 3:00. And so I said to him, I'll expect a text tomorrow that you're under contract. And he said, get out of here. Get out of here. You're gonna, make it not happen or something. And I said, no. I said, I'm confident it's going to happen. Your house looks fabulous. It does. And it's in a great neighborhood. And the layout, the floor plan of it was good. And you're good people. And so I left. And sure enough, Friday at like 3:00, he said, darned it, you were right. I mean, we're under contract.
Wow, that's amazing. What a great story.
Yeah,
I
it's
love
pretty
hearing
special.
that. It is special. And I love what, the discussion you had with your daughter, where she was telling you, it's your business page, Mom. But I think you're right. I think coming up authentic, even though it's a LinkedIn profile, but you can still be yourself. You can still show your values. You can still show who you are. Like, you don't need to empty your dirty laundry, clean your dirty laundry. I never know. But I think it's so important to show up as yourself. And also, I think that's a hard exercise to be authentic, because a lot of people wear different hats, right, at home and at work. I used to do that, especially in real estate, a male-dominated industry. I definitely used to have two personas, one at work and one on the outside. And it's only in the recent years that I'm combining both to feel more whole. But that's something I would definitely tell my younger self to start as early as possible, to just show up as yourself and be unapologetic about it. That took me so many years to figure out. And so, to that question, what would you tell your 20-year-old self if you could?
To be confident. I think when we're 20, when we're even 30, I think we don't believe in ourselves. We are our biggest critic, without question. I was at a house today. Again, it was magical. We have this really nice, it's like a 5,000 square foot home, and it's only 12, I think it's 12 years old, 12, maybe 10. It's not a super old house, but it's on big acreage here outside of Nashville. And the exterior doesn't feel castle-like, but it's a castle. It even has a Juliet balcony, and it has a stone turret, and it has a wonderful, big, huge, iron door, which is really texturally really beautiful. The homeowner came up to me today, and I showed up with all my paints. I went to Sherwin-Williams. This is where you get into the muddy of it, right? You've got to figure out what color you're going to throw on that wall. And in my 20 or 30-year-old self, I would probably second guess myself 12 times, even though I'm a design person. I know what I'm doing, and I know what's going to work. Does that mean I don't make mistakes? No. Sometimes we pick a wrong color. And so with this house, like I said, it's a very big house, and it's kind of in the middle of this beautiful 27 acres. We are definitely going with a lighter color. Anyway, I showed up with 30 colors, and she was like, oh my gosh, how are you ever going to pick a color out of 30 colors? I said, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to tape them to the wall, and we're going to step back, and then we're going to narrow it down to a few, and then we're going to go to a different facade, which is going to have a different sun exposure and or a different adjacency because of the garage, the way the garage paints are and the garage colors. And then we have to go to the back of the house. We have to look at it in shadow. And what made me so happy was she was so relieved. She was so touched. She said, I wouldn't have known where to begin.
Mm-hmm.
She literally didn't have any clue. She thought, and then she was like, well, where did you get all these samples? I said, well, I mean, that's what you're buying, right? I have procurement with Sherwin-Williams for paint. And while you, the consumer, might have to go to Sherwin-Williams and spend $5 on a piece that's this large, I can just go in there and grab what I need. I buy a lot of paint. I mean, trust me, I buy thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of paint any month. And this is a huge job. We're buying about 50 gallons of paint for this job. So I got to be darn sure that if I buy 50 gallons of a paint, it's the right color, because the last thing I want to do is have 50 gallons of paint in my shop. That would be a disaster, right? Unless I was going to get a bridge painting job, which I'm not anxious to do. So, but anyway, it's really rewarding, and in unexpected ways. That discussion went into another discussion, about her daughter and this young other woman that's working with me. She was joining, and they were two of them. And I sat back and I looked at the two of them befriending each other. I'm like, this is cool. Right?
Yeah, when the magic happens, I love it.
It's amazing. And by the way, the whole authenticity thing, I think people talk about it, but they don't. They may or may not be authentic. I became very authentic in 2020. I mean, it took me a long time to get rid of that veil, because like you, I've been in a male-dominated industry my whole life. Architecture, construction, real estate development, it's always men. For some reason, I've had to prove myself that I understand the difference between steel and aluminum. I learned it back in architecture school, but I guess I know the difference of cement and concrete, and they're very different. I mean, cement is a product that's within concrete, but people often say, look at the cement color on the ground. And it's not just girls that say it, guys say it too. They don't know. So we I think somehow are raised to understand that, we as women somehow maybe don't have as much knowledge. We do. That's not true. It's how you're schooled. It's how you're raised. But I wish we were raised. I hope I raised my kids, especially my daughter, because my son, he's confident. But girls, sometimes we just don't have the same self-confidence. And we're the smartest one. I mean, my daughter's the magna cum laude from college, and she's going on to dental school, and she's brilliant. But sometimes, still I see that hint of insecurity. I'm like, why? Right. But in 2020, LinkedIn, back to authenticity. In 2020, LinkedIn became my friend. I was very isolated. I worked in senior living, and legitimately people were dying around me, like a lot of people, a lot of residents that I knew, because it did attack the most vulnerable of our population. And I had a hard time with it. So my sense of normalcy was to go on LinkedIn and deal with people that were doing virtual jobs, that were in finance, didn't matter what industry. You mentioned mentorship can come from any different career. I found mentors in so many different industries, and not deliberate mentors, just watching or just engaging on LinkedIn. And I cross-pollinated during 2020 big time across real estate. I wasn't just with real estate people. And I found that there's so many great people in this world if you just open your ears and your eyes.
Absolutely. And I'd love to go back to what you mentioned before. So confidence. How would you help someone who tells you, yeah, I'm a bit insecure. I'm a bit scared to send a proposal. I'm a bit scared to go on that client's meeting. How do you build that confidence?
By giving them more work. I think that confidence comes from practice. I think confidence in speaking comes from practice speaking. Confidence and knowledge comes from watching it go down live. I mentioned this young woman who I'm working with, and I will instill confidence in her to the best of my ability by having her around mistakes and having her around positive moments, right? Your confidence really comes from, I think it comes, true confidence. I'm not talking about arrogance. Confidence comes from practice and exposure.
I agree. I think it's all about the reps.
Right? And how many?
Absolutely. Like I have a thing where I tell myself I can't decide that I'm bad at something unless I've done it 30 times, at least 30 times. Then I can say, maybe I'm not so good at it. Maybe, but maybe.
Maybe I'm not going to run the marathon, even though I think I'm really good at it, or I can figure out how to do it, right?
Because I feel usually when you're like above 20, you're already not thinking about these things because you've already done the same thing like 20 times. So you're not thinking, am I good, am I bad? You already went through the motion. So
Correct.
you're on your path. So it's really a matter of starting like anything else. Like, do you want to go for a run? Start putting your shoes. You're really likely to go for that run. You just put your shoes first, like one
That's
step
right.
at a time.
That's right.
I'm with you. And are there any influencers or role models that you're looking up to? Someone that you love getting your content from, or a book you love? Anything that you would like to share with our audience that you find inspiring or uplifting?
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's two people, and I found them both during 2020. Do you know who Simon Sinek is?
It rings a bell, but I wouldn't.
So
Be.
he's an influencer, he's a leadership guru.
Mm-hmm.
He, during 2020, I talk about these friendships during 2020, which was just an interesting world. I was working crazy hours, though mostly virtual, and then by mid 2020 we were traveling. So the world shut down in March, and then by June we were back on the road because we were essential workers, right, working in healthcare. Simon Sinek has the book called, what is it called? I forgot the name of it, but it's about your why.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a free book club in 2020 surrounding this issue because he went from public speaker, to what the heck do I do with myself, right? He had a team of people working for him doing public speaking engagements, to what the heck do I do with myself? Because he's in California, you can't go anywhere. Nobody wants to hire a public speaker in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So he did these, there were a couple virtual book clubs, and I joined one of them. And one of them was to kind of create your why statement. Anyway, I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan. And part of it's because he is an authentic leader. He's an authentic speaker. He's poised, articulate. It's not, and leadership skills, gosh, it crosses every industry. People, it doesn't matter if you're leading, a band of children, in an orchestra, if you're leading, I mean, your techniques change, right?
Absolutely.
But your actual skill set is kind of the same. You got to believe in who you're leading.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other person is a woman who I met also during COVID. Her name is Kelly Merbler. Do you know who she is?
Mm-hmm. No.
So Kelly Merbler, similarly, she was a public speaker.
Mm-hmm.
She left corporate America probably 7 years ago, and she started doing public speaking. She's a follower of John Maxwell. Do you know who he is?
Mm-hmm.
So John Maxwell is a public speaker as well and a leadership coach.
Mm-hmm.
And John Maxwell has these classes that he teaches, and he encourages people, through your personality. You connect with your personality and I think they call it strength. Yeah, they call it strength finders.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically identify your 5 top strengths, which always are your top. They're also your top 5 weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
Your top strength is giving too much. That's your biggest weakness. I mean, no matter.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, John Maxwell has the strength finders, and Kelly Merbler is another one who followed John. She was a John Maxwell, protege basically. And I just love Kelly to death. She started in 2020. In March of 2020, right after COVID, she started what was called Coffee with Kelly. And it was it started out live, and it started right before COVID, the week before COVID happened, March 19th or 12th or whatever day, March 13th, I guess, Chicago. And I think she had like March 8th or something, had this live Coffee with Kelly. And her initiative was just to get a group of primarily women. It wasn't a women's group necessarily. It's not exclusive, but she found that mostly women wanted to do this Coffee with Kelly. So she lives down by Palm Beach, and she did this Coffee with Kelly. And then she was shut down. Even in Florida, she was shut down. And she couldn't do live coffees because nobody wanted to go out.
Mm-hmm.
And so she started this virtual Coffee with Kelly a week later.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like the middle of March. Maybe it was March 16th or March 15th or something. And I adore Kelly. And I'm going to be transparent. I don't attend many of her coffees because they're at 7 a.m. for me. on Fridays when she's available. When she's not, she travels. She's back, of course, into public speaking and leadership. She does a lot of leadership things, or I guess they're like workshops for companies that she does. But she did this Coffee with Kelly. And I'll tell you what I love about her is I'm incidental, right? I show up sometimes. I started going to her because I found her on LinkedIn. Somehow she showed up in my feed. And as I mentioned, 2020 was really tough in senior living. It was a very tough time because literally it was literally life or death. People were dying. And I would go on LinkedIn and I would listen to her Coffee with Kelly on a Friday morning. And I'd be like, wow, there's a lot of people that aren't dealing with life or death. There's a lot of people that are, worried about their own families, or they're worried about their children or their teachers or their doctors, or, I mean, we're not a world that's all around senior living, but we get involved in our own head and we isolate ourselves seemingly with people that do what we do. And I found that time in 2020 a time to explore, and I found Kelly, and I got the opportunity to meet her about a month ago, and I think it's hysterical because it's like I'm her fan club or something. But it's because she's so authentic. She's just a really authentic bird on this planet, and she flies around, and does all these fancy leadership things, but then she still does her Coffee with Kelly. Anyway, her 5-year anniversary was about a month ago, and I showed up for that. That was 6 p.m. on a Thursday night or something. And she always acknowledges, she always has chat boxes open, and what she did in 2020 was do you remember like 2020? I don't know if you were doing this in 2020 and 20. I went from designing buildings in conference rooms to designing buildings behind my computer. Like, that was weird. Like, we would have like these Google Meets or Microsoft Teams meetings or Zoom meetings, and they would ship me materials for buildings we were building. I would get tile, and I'd get carpet, and I'd get fabric samples, and because I was doing new development in senior living as well. So the stuff would come in my door by the design folks, and then we'd sit on a Zoom just like this, and I'd hold up my fabric samples. I like this one, or I like but she really took it to another level because she, I saw how she opened up her chat box. She didn't require, but she requested that you have a camera on. I required during 2020 that we have a camera on. Because I felt very strongly that if I'm going to do virtual meetings with folks, in California and New York and Florida, wherever everybody's located, I want to at least see them because we were so alone, right?
Right.
Were you in New York during 2020?
I was in New York. I have a bit of a different story in the sense that I wanted to have a remote business. I started my business in 2015, so people were not really using Zoom. I remember when I was trying to do presentations with landlords, developers, brokers, and it was not a thing, doing
Correct.
Doing things online. So 2020, then I saw all my friends, everybody around me switching to the, remote work, but I had been already doing it for years. It took me 2 years to adjust to it. So it was not easy to adjust to it, to be working from an office to working from home, but that's what I wanted to do. I love working from home. I'm one of these people, but it's definitely not possible in all industries. I think in digital marketing, it's very much possible, but
Yes.
If you have to do exchange like that with material or if you have to be in a group and brainstorm, I think that makes it really hard if you're not in person.
Yes, it is.
So, yeah.
And if you're building buildings, like with what I'm doing right now, paint is not paint. White is not white. Green is not green. Light has such an impact where you are in the country, where your light levels are, what kind of artificial lighting you've got going in. I do paint in some houses, like my neutral color. In some houses, it's one color. In another house, it's in this 2-story house I'm looking at right now. Because of the floor is not changing. I'm changing the carpet. The carpet will work with the hardwood, but necessarily the white that I used in my last few houses, I'm not using. I do not want to use it in this house. It will not work as well. So that's a great example. In design, you so often, I can look in my environment, but if we're building a project in Florida, I've got a much better lens on it here than I would have in Chicago. In Chicago, everything is grayer. My lighting is grayer. I mean, I don't get those sunny days here. It's more like Florida. I get more sunny days here. But you have to design when you do design projects regionally, around.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
That's why senior living is it was so much fun because I got to, most projects have a kind of a unique flavor. I tried to standardize some backdrops, like maybe the wall color is the same, but fabric colors are always switching out because of the sun and again, the lighting, and maybe you have a 2-story space versus a 1-story. Maybe you have a fluorescent lighting that you maybe don't like, but you're stuck with it. So what do you do? I mean, that impacts color completely, your lighting, right? So I love design. Can you tell?
I can tell. I love hearing your stories. Thank you. Thank you again for sharing. And I'm sure it's very insightful for our listeners. I heard you saying that the 7 a.m. coffee meets. You're like, I don't think so. You're your own business owner and you're working a lot with real estate agents, which is a 27 industry. How do you keep, it's not work-life balance. I'm not sure that the word balance is the word that I like using for this. I call it more harmony. Are you able to reach a work-life harmony in a way?
I think if you love what you do, work and life are integrated. And I've felt that for my whole life. I really have. I mean, my kids, for example, who are not kids, I mean, 19 and 22, this is the only Maura they know, right? I have always worked very hard, but I don't draw a line that it's 5 o'clock now. That said, I try to respect, dinner time, but sometimes, I'm just as bad as the rest of us. Sometimes it's 8 o'clock at night and I'm in front of my computer because things got in the way. Distractions happen during the day, and a meeting at a client house was supposed to take an hour and it took 2.5. Well, if it took 2.5, the one thing I can't be responsible for is multiplying time. I mean, we all wish we had more time, but we don't, right?
Absolutely.
So, but I try to find a balance. I like to call it, people say, I multi-focus, or I multitask. Well, maybe. It's a question of when you do anything, and I tag all my stuff on LinkedIn. And again, I've been bad recently because of my social thing, because of my pressures with my projects. Again, back in 2020, when I was struggling just with this whole online thing, and I was traveling, but I wasn't traveling the same way, and people were weird traveling. They would look at you like you probably have the virus. You're going to get it to me, in the airplane. But like, but I tag everything with 3 hashtags: be kind, be present, and be committed. And it officially started in 2013. When I moved into senior living, I noticed that we were always reacting. Nobody was responding to anything. Everybody was reacting. We were literally, I felt like there were bullets being shot at me, and I was constantly with my, defending myself, or defending, an incident happened in a senior living community and a resident tripped and fell. Well, we have to look into new flooring. Maybe it's a trip hazard. Maybe it's the wrong material that's on the floor. Maybe, I don't know. There could be any series of reasons, right? But anyway, I started in 2013. I ran my department. We had 200 buildings and I had 5 people working with me and for me. And then we had 200 maintenance guys under them and 200 executive directors. So I was working with, 500 people at a time. Not to mention all the corporate staff. Anyway, I felt like people weren't being kind. I mean, because you have to have hard discussions, but you can be kind about it. You don't have to be a jerk. And then this idea about being present, we live in a multimedia environment where the phone's always ringing, the computer's always buzzing. But if you're in a meeting with somebody, I always ask people to just be present in the meeting. Okay, if a crisis comes about, leave. Go deal with it, but be present with someone while you're speaking with them. And then the last thing is related to that is being committed. Be committed to what you're doing. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Don't say you're going to do something and maybe you get around to it or maybe you don't. And I found it's this thing that I kind of started, these 3 words. I have a book I was going to write. I haven't done it because life got in the way. But it's around those 3 words and the importance of being kind, be present, be committed. I know a lot of other people now are using like be kind. And I love it. I'm like, finally, people are getting the notion that you don't have to be a jerk, right?
Absolutely. And I love your why, if I may share it.
Sure.
To lead others so that they can grow, be independent, and have meaningful lives. I really like that, what you have on your LinkedIn.
Got that from Simon Sinek. So when I
Is,
went to his book club in 2020, he asked us to recreate our why statements.
mm-hmm,
And so that's where that came from. We did the book club, and the book club was, I want to say it was 6 weeks long, 8 weeks long, and we were put in cohorts. So we basically worked virtually in a screen just like this, and we had 4 people that were in our cohort, and you didn't miss it. You did not miss it. You were committed to those 3 other people in your cohort. And we went through different chapters of the book, and then we had the book club. And he would, at the very end, we all created our why statements, and that's where they came from. Isn't that neat?
That's awesome. I love it.
Full circle.
And so, Maura, what's coming up next for you?
Gosh, just right now, it's just keeping myself healthy and doing a lot of projects and impacting others in a positive way.
And if you had a magic wand that would solve your business problem, what would it be?
A magic wand to solve my business problem. More time. More time. Yeah, there's not enough hours in the day to do everything I want to do. I also want to get to the gym more. I want to travel. I mean, have traveled a lot over the course of my life, but I always have a voracious itch to travel. I'm a vagabond. I love traveling. I don't like traveling, with clarification. I don't necessarily like traveling for work.
Right.
Just to airports and conference rooms or buildings, but I have a voracious desire to travel, and I'm so curious. Like driving around here, I made it intentional. Again, if you're going to LinkedIn with me, you'll see that I did a lot of photography. I haven't done it candidly in the past 6-7 months. I haven't touched it. I don't have time. I don't have time. What am I doing with my photography? Everybody asks. I'm like, I have no idea. I was going to use it for this book. I have no idea. I just love it. I love pushing positive images across the globe. And if I can reach 2 people or 10 people or 20 people or 100 people with positive image and a positive message, I'm all on it. Because I think there's so many negative images and there's so much negativity. And, I really felt that in Chicago. I'm like I said, Nashville for me, I sort of found my peace. I can easily drive 20 minutes and be on a horse farm. Or the other direction, I can go find some longhorn cattle. It's really wonderful. It's just, it's cool. Or I can drive the other direction and hit Costco or hit TJ Maxx or the shopping center. Right? It's kind of neat. Or the bars in Nashville.
I am still yet to go to Costco. My friends make fun of me because I tell them, I've never been to a Costco. I would love to go to a Costco.
You've never been to Costco?
No.
Oh my God. Good for you.
Apparently it's a great experience. I would love to see that.
I don't know if it is.
No?
But you know what? I went last Sunday. I was traveling on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I went and visited my son in Knoxville. And on Sunday, I got back at like 4:30, and I really did need to go to Costco, and because we had a lot of produce. So I buy, the big strawberries, the big blueberries, the big blackberries, because it's good for a week, right? So anyway, I went to Costco, and I felt like I was fighting for my life. The parking lot was so crowded, and the people can't drive the right direction with their carts. People tend to wander around Costco, and because there's so much, it's like the Disneyland of shopping, that they forget that they're driving a cart, and then they bang into your backside, or they bang into. I felt like I was fighting for my life last Sunday. That was my last experience. So you should definitely try it.
Yeah, it sounds a bit more like a European experience with the cart. In France, you shop with a cart. Here, you buy yogurt by unit, which is, I had my family visiting recently from Paris, and they were like, what's going on? Why do we have to buy yogurts that are $3 and per unit? I'm like, welcome to New York.
It's a cost of living. Well, also because in New York City, you don't have the space.
Right.
You don't have the space to keep, when we buy toilet paper,
I have to be smart with your inventory.
Yeah, toilet paper comes in, I guess there's 6 rolls times 6. So 36 rolls of toilet paper. And I just keep it in the top of a closet, and then...
It's like a bedroom here.
Yeah, but we keep it, and in 2-3 months or however long, 4 months, you go and you do it again, and but you leave it. But it's not like COVID when people were stealing toilet paper. It's just I go get my toilet paper there when it runs out, and then 6 months later, however long it takes, we go. If we're down to our last 6 rolls, then it's time to go buy another 36 pack.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's also better for the environment. I mean, I'm very pro Costco. I love the concept. I'm just yet to have set foot there. I want to go.
No, it's an interesting experience. It's just there's been such growth in Middle Tennessee, and they desperately need another Costco. I mentioned my territory is from Nashville going down south all the way to Columbia. There's been a lot of growth, 20-30% year-to-year growth in residential development, and they don't have a Costco south of us from Nashville. So the problem is everybody south comes up this island every Saturday and Sunday, because you can't do it during the work week because people, they work. They're not going to get home and at 8 o'clock at night. Well, I think they close at 8 actually. They're not going to come to Costco, right? So they come Saturday and Sunday. And I never go on the weekends. Last Sunday, I thought it was a great idea because I knew I was busy. And I thought if I get my berries, so I bought my milk and my eggs and my blueberries. And I mean, I didn't have a huge cart even, but I literally nearly lost a toe,
Oh, wow.
I encourage you to try it. Where is your closest Costco, though? It's got to be in Long Island or New Jersey?
I'm really not sure how. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't know where there's a physical location.
You need because you need like a big trunk to carry the big. It's like everything. We stopped going for many years. I went back in Chicago, and then we stopped going just because it was a distance to drive across town. And I tried the whole Peapod thing for a while and had my groceries delivered. My husband and I, we were both working crazy hours, and so we needed, the same. It was the same problem though. I had 2 young kids, and we eat a lot of produce, right? So I needed a big bag of oranges. I needed a lot of blueberries, a lot of. If you have 4 people, you go through a lot of strawberries over the course of a week, right?
I love this Costco conversation. And Maura, would you like to leave with our listeners I call them the golden nuggets of wisdom? Anything that you would like to share with our audience to end this episode? And if not, that's okay.
I would just say be kind, be present, and be committed. I mean, honestly, I really try to live by those 3 tenets of life, and it doesn't take a lot. I hear all the time, I have a problem. Somebody says to you, I have a problem. Like, really? Most people have multiple problems. It's okay. Cope. But again, I would just offer, be kind, be present, be committed. And I think the only thing I'd offer, and I said I'd only offer, but is do your best. I think there's too often there's an attitude of doing just enough in whatever you're doing, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job, whether it's a project, whether it's brushing your teeth. Do it right. Don't just do it, because I think too often we give ourselves a pass that we just need to do it. And okay, so maybe it doesn't matter, if you use Crest versus Colgate.
Thank you so much. And Maura, where can people find you?
So on LinkedIn, my name is Maura. It's Maura, and the last name is Feaheny. F as in Frank, Eahen, like Nancy, Y. Or you can also find me on our website. It's home-stretch. So not underscore, but home-stretch. And my territory is /SW Nashville, which stands for Southwest Nashville. home-stretch. /SW Nashville.
And thank you so much, Maura, for being with us on this episode today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. And thank you so much again. And I'm sure our listeners benefited from so much wisdom that you shared and so many insights. Thank you again. And that wraps up today's episode. I am Annelise Cayez, and I can't wait to join you again next week. Thanks for listening to Parlez-Vous CEO today. If you enjoyed the show, leave a 5-star review. It helps us keep going. And connect with us on Instagram at Parlez-Vous CEO. I am Annelise Cayez, and I know some days are harder than others. On those tough days, think back to why you started. What you're doing today matters, even when you can't see the results yet. Ideas are great, but it's what you do with them that counts. Find everything we talked about today at parlezvousceo.com. See you next week, and you've got this.